I'm Katie Clancy, Chief House Hawker for the Cape House at William Ravis.
And I'm Sarah Lapsley Martin of Team Martin Lapsley at Kinlan Grover Real Estate. And this is What's Good Cape Cod, where we show you the Cape through the eyes of a couple of locals.
Every week, we tell you about a person, a place, and a thing that we think you should know about. So our person this week is Megan Murphy of the Kindness Rocks Project. She's the creator of it's a national movement, actually, which encourages people to leave rocks painted with inspiring messages along the path of life. Now, a lot of you may have heard about Kindness Rocks before, but you might not have heard much about Megan, and we think she's done this on purpose. But we want to know a little bit more about you, Megan. So is it okay if we ask you a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Sarah, why don't you start?
So one of our first questions we would love to know is, are you a Cape Cod native or are you a wash ashore? What's your story?
So I am a wash ashore. I actually married a Cape Cod native. So, I'm not really on either side.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that I washed ashore here.
Yeah. How long have you been on the Cape?
I've been on the Cape for 25 years now.
Oh yeah, so what?
So you're a Cape Codder by marriage,
Right.
Yeah.
a native by marriage.
Yeah,
We'll
right.
give you that.
Yes.
As I said, neither one of us was born on the Cape, so.
Right. Yes.
I have a question. So when I first heard about Kindness Rocks, and we all heard about it, everybody wanted to know who started it, where did it come from, and who is this person? And
So anonymity was really big. I'll talk later about the project, but I can say that if any of you have gone through something challenging in your life, it's a very vulnerable place to be in. And so I'd like to say I was very brave and courageous and that I created this project. But in actuality, I was going through a difficult time in my life. And this was a personal hobby that made me feel good. And so when I realized that it would help other people, there was still that vulnerability inside of like, oh gosh, people will think I'm crazy. And is anybody understand this? And also, I truly believe personally that kindness is something that you do under the radar. And you really shouldn't be saying like, look at me, look what I'm doing. That's not really the true, definition of what kindness is about.
yes, and other people will say like, it's not a gift if it's not given unconditionally.
Right.
You can't sit there and just wait for someone to find the rock. It's not, that's
Right.
not what it's about. You just let it go and then just let the universe handle the rest, right?
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So next we're going to talk about place. So one of the things I'm most curious about is, where did you place your first rock?
Yeah, so the first rock was placed on Sandy Neck Beach. That was where I took my morning walks every time that I just needed a little bit of solace. And, I would go there for inspiration and to get away from all the noise. And so Sandy Neck, I call it my church. It's where I go, to find that space. And so that was where the very first rock was dropped. And that was where that very first rock was picked up by one of my friends. And I had only dropped 5 rocks on that first day across a 1.5-mile stretch of Sandy Neck, which we all know should be called Rocky Neck because it's filled with rocks. And so that night she found one of my rocks and she texted me a picture of it and said, did you leave this rock on Sandy Neck Beach today? Yeah. To which I said, no, back to the anonymity and,
Yes.
Who was this that did that? But I think she knew I walked the beach and she knew I went there looking for heart rocks. And she said, well, if it was you, I want to let you know that I was going through a bad day and you made it better. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Of course, I'm a mush anyway. Like if you're going to tell another story, I'm definitely going to lose it. Like it's just thinking about like hard times. Like Sarah and I both had hard things, and just imagining that someone just found that and the serendipity of finding it makes complete sense that this would be such a huge thing. But let's Stay focused here. So we read on your website, I don't know if this is still current, that the rocks are in 90 countries. Is that true? Is it still just 90? Have you gone further since the latest?
I stopped counting. I mean, every day I actually get Google alerts anytime the project is mentioned. So every day that I wake up, literally there's 5 or 6 media outlets around the world that's talking about the Kindness Rocks project popping up in a community in a different country, which is just so lovely. And it's what our world needs. So
agreed. What's the farthest rock? Do you know what the farthest away rock has been?
Yeah, well, I can say that people have joined us from India, from New Zealand, Australia. There's a big community in both those countries.
Yeah.
Japan, China, Hong Kong. It's really amazing. There was actually a mall in Hong Kong that did the Kindness Rocks, and they painted a mural on a wall. And
wow.
I mean, it's really surreal. I mean, it's amazing.
Oh, I love that.
All started here on Cape Cod. I mean, it's really amazing.
I just love that.
Yeah.
So since I was the one that got weepy first, I'm going to take it to the funny side now because I need to go together. Tell us a story, if you would, that made you laugh about Kindness Rocks. A funny place that someone put a rock or found a rock or wrote on a rock. What is a story that made you laugh?
Okay, so this is not funny, haha.
Okay.
Like funny, like weird, universal, crazy funny.
Yeah.
So I was on the Today Show several years ago, I think 2 years ago now. And so there I am in the hotel room with my 3 adult daughters sleeping crazily like we're in college. And I awoke and I was really like anxious about it. Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? You know, this is just so much bigger than me. I actually feel like I'm just the hands on earth. So there's kind of a spiritual aspect to it. So I'm like, trying to work through my anxiety and about, me going on the show. And I turned the corner and I'm walking up the street, and all of a sudden, like something like a neon blue flash was like to my left. And I thought, what is that? So I walk back and I look in the window, and it's a vegan restaurant, right? Vegan food. Mm-hmm. And on the wall in neon letters was a sign that said, "We're here to rock."
I love that.
And I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's literally a sign, and it's a sign. And I started laughing. I went from this place and I'm like, that is the weirdest thing ever. And so for me, like, that was just, it was really amazing. Cause I'm like, oh, I got this, right? Like someone wants me to know that it's all going to be good. And so
indeed you were there to rock.
Yes. What a sign.
And like, what vegans go to a restaurant? Why do, like, a vegan restaurant? They're not there to rock. They're there to eat vegetables.
Yeah.
Like, I should have said.
I love that. So our thing this week is obviously all about the Kindness Rocks. We want to know how it actually started and what your mission is.
Like, so we kind of know the basics, but like, so you had that one day and your friend found the rock, which is incredibly cool and serendipitous and amazing.
Right.
But how did you get from there to here?
Yeah. So from there, which was a place that I didn't create, remember, it just kind of happened. At the time, my daughter said, Mom, you can drop one rock at the beach and you can affect one person's life. They can find that rock and it can have meaning for them. Or you can add a hashtag on the back of the rocks and add social media pages, and it can hit like tons of people. And I'm like, what's a hashtag? Explain it. Send me to social media school. How does it work? Something I was never interested in. And in any event, she taught me about that. And I was like, oh, that's so powerful, right? Like using social media for good. And how does that look? And so I kind of from that point, dedicated myself to, and I still do today, I go for my walks. I pack about 5 rocks in my pocket and I take photos on the way to the beach. And then I put them in the garden. I plant them there physically. And then I have those 5 images that I then use on social media to uplift people. So what happened, as you both know, being realtors here on Cape Cod, people come here from around the world to vacation or to live in their later years because this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And so when they came across an inspirational garden that I created with a sign that said, you know, take a message, share a message, or join us, and the tagline, the reason, one message at just the right moment can change someone's entire day, outlook, or life, it really resonated with them. And so they took pictures of the garden, or they took a rock and they went home to their communities and they wanted to do the same there. So they would reach out to me and say, how do I do this? I wasn't trying to create a business or anything. So my intention, when you stick to your intention rather than the attention, was to grow something beautiful and cultivate kindness in communities. So I said, here's what I did. Here you go. Take it and do this in your community. That is how it grew so quickly.
And really something that helped you in a time that was difficult is now people can do the same thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What year did you actually drop the first rock?
So 2014 was really under the radar. I didn't have social media yet. And that's when I really was starting to do that because I was going through a difficult time. And weirdly, I had just returned. I had started doing it before I went to India. I took one of my daughters to India for a month. Oh. And when I was there, again, I was trying to pull pieces together of what my life was supposed to be now through this big transitional period. And so when we were in India, I kept saying to her, I'm supposed to be taking a picture of something. And she's like, what, Mom? What are you talking about? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, maybe this is one of these like things, right? Like a spiritual thing. I have no idea, but I'm supposed to be taking a picture of something. And it's funny because when I came home and I continued doing the rocks, and that's when I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be taking pictures of these rocks, back to that social media aspect.
Yeah.
So it's really like, if I put all the pieces of everything together, it's like this was meant to be. And there were just little signs, literal signs and messages from me along the way. So
I know. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, I've found rocks just at the perfect time in my life. And, you know, maybe they weren't from you, but they were from someone else that placed them there. And, you know, just in that moment, it truly lifted me up when I needed it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'd like to say that I could take credit, but I don't know if you've ever read the book, and I'm going to give a book recommendation here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. And she talks about that there's things that want to be invented or created in the world. And what happens is that it floats through the ethers and it lands on people by way of, you know, intuition. You know, we get these intuitive hits. It's like kind of like a hunch, like, and it gives us a moment of pause. But very few of us take the time to answer that and to say, wait, what is that? So I think that this project in particular tapped many people and said, hey, are you going to take this calling and are you going to do this? And so I just was at a time where I was looking for something to do. So I'm like, all right, universe, like I've got this. I'm on it.
And look where it's grown. I mean.
Yeah. And it tapped a lot of people because I think it knew that our world needed healing. I mean, look at the world that we're living in. Really amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great. So as we wrap up, I want to know how we can help Kindness Rocks. What can we do to help the project, to help the mission? How can we help? What can we do? And what can our listeners do?
Yeah. So basically be kinder to one another. It's as simple as that. You know, if you are inspired by this, then you can go check out what the Kindness Rocks Project is all about at thekindnessrocksproject.com. But really, the intention and the initiative is just to create a kinder world. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, we are so grateful.
Yes.
And like I said, so peaceful. Like I just feel great after this conversation.
Yes.
So appreciate it. Um, so now you know what's good Cape Cod for this episode. Keep following us, and before long, you'll know Cape Cod like we know Cape Cod.